I believe that it takes a village. The worst deal that you can possibly do is one in a vacuum where it's just you. The more people you get in your organization to help chime in, and whether it's legal, risk, infosec, privacy, compliance, finance, whoever it is, like you need all of those voices at the table to be able to do the best deal possible.
Hello and welcome to the Sourcing Hero podcast. I'm Catherine, your host, and today I have Robert Wright on the show. Today he's the principal of ICN, that's International Computer Negotiations. Hi Robert, how are you?
Hey Catherine, how's it going?
Pretty good. It's a beautiful day in Kansas City.
Fantastic.
And where are you located?
So I'm based out of Louisville, Kentucky. Now, ICN proper, the headquarters is in Winter Park, Florida, but I claim Kentucky is home and always have.
So you didn't snag that Winter Park location, huh?
Didn't snag the Winter Park location. Love to visit it when we're not in the middle of a pandemic, but we'll get back down there soon enough.
And so how is ICN doing throughout the pandemic? What have you noticed with your business?
It's a good question, right? And I'll have a lot of folks ask me that, especially as I'm new to the business in terms of being an owner. We're doing really well. There was a lot of uncertainty, not only in our own business, but also, the clients that we support, the various procurement organizations that we support, when the pandemic was really in full force. Certainly, some people were, kind of transitioning out of a job. Others were, companies were doubling down on training and workshops for their employees to really help their staff kind of navigate this new normal. So we're doing really well. Lots of trainings on the books, which is great. Lots of consulting work that we're doing. And so the new normal has been really nice for us.
I love that. That's not a common answer that I hear.
I'm very blessed as I say that, and I knock on wood at the same time, because I know that there's a lot of folks out there that it hasn't been as positive for, and certainly, want to appreciate that and honor that fact. But for us, we've been able to navigate it successfully.
Well, and that tells me that the spotlight on procurement has responded well. And so they're wanting education and training, and they're using this time to empower their people and help them navigate whatever it is in our future. So I love that response from procurement.
Yeah, no, I do as well. And it's been really interesting to see. Procurement sometimes has the reputation for being, the thing that kills a deal or slows a deal down, or it's that necessary evil that people have to work through. But I think if anything, this pandemic's really, it's shined a light on the fact that procurement's really important. It's really important in terms of being able to scale and transition and purchase, whether it's masks or, additional servers, or we need more software licenses or whatever it is. Like, that's the group of people that are going to be able to make that happen. And those people, to do their job effectively, to mitigate risk in the midst of pandemic chaos in order to get the best deal possible from a cost perspective, those people have to be armed with tools. And that's one of the things, ICN's mantra is do better deals. We always want people to do better deals. And that comes from, doing great negotiations with a focus on reducing cost and mitigating risk. And you need tools in the toolbox to be able to do that. So it's been nice to see organizations recognize that and really double down on empowering their organizations with training, with additional consultancy. And it's been nice to see.
You explain that so well and so clearly. And I don't know how any business would say no to that, to be honest.
Well, that's my position on the whole thing, Catherine, but I'm a little biased, as they say.
And your point of view and doing better deals and negotiations is unique because you didn't start your career in procurement. Tell me a little bit about your background.
Yeah, it's interesting. When people ask, well, how in the world did you get involved at ICN? How in the world did you get involved with procurement? I really kind of fell into it. I was in college kind of in the midst of Napster heyday and, the internet becoming what it was and file sharing. And I was just really fascinated by all of that. And frankly, all the legalities around that. I had an interest in government. And so combined with kind of what was going on in the internet space at that point in time, it made absolute sense for me to head to law school and really focus on intellectual property law. So trademarks and copyrights and patents and entrepreneurship and all those sorts of things. Fell in love with that. And, that's what I wanted to do with my career. I liked it so much. I joke, one of the only people you'll meet that went to law school 4 years instead of 3. I got my JD from the University of Louisville, passed the bar, and then I went off to the Franklin Pierce Law Center up in Concord, New Hampshire to get a master's degree in intellectual property, commerce, and technology. I geeked out about it so much, right? So I just loved being a student, loved the law, and specifically loved technology law. While I was at Franklin Pierce, I learned trademarks are neat, copyrights are fun, patents are interesting. The way businesses make money off of all of those things is through licensing. And so started, looked at the traditional law firm route in terms of, kind of being in an IP practice, but really had an interest and was inspired by an instructor that I had up at Franklin Pierce in kind of the nonprofit tech transfer section of the law, and ended up, kind of taking that interest, parlaying that into a position at the University of Louisville, where I would help large companies that wanted to partner with the university, do research, and have our faculty create cool new things in the lab, help do the deal for that. Ultimately, was there for a little while, and then Humana, a Fortune 50 company based in Louisville, came knocking and said, "Hey, we'd like you to come over and work in our IT department." I'm like, IT department? How did I end up here? But when they explained what it was, like, you're going to go out and you're going to help us license software and secure technology services and maybe purchase some mainframes along the way and maybe work with the Innovation Center on some of the cool new stuff that they have going on, I said, sign me up. This is great. Now, so I'm in IT within procurement over at Humana at that point. As I got there, really confident in the law, really confident in the legal constructs and, cutting a teeth negotiating a deal. But I quickly realized procurement's a little different than that, right? It's much broader. It's not just, yes, the terms and conditions are really important, but doing a proper procurement's more than that. Doing a proper negotiation's more than just the T's and C's. And so, I did what everybody does when they're trying to find information. I Googled technology procurement training, technology procurement help.
Right. More education.
Education, right? And I found ICN. I found their IT procurement summit and, was able to convince Humana leadership at that point to send me to the conference. Fell in love. I mean, I was with people that were geeking out about technology procurement kind of the same way that I was able to take so many great tips and tactics from the conference, bring them back to Humana and implement them there. It was really, really great. Quickly got involved in their executive advisory committee to help shape their membership organization. So ICN's membership organization is called Caucus. Again, that collaboration, that community that I found at the summit, at the annual conference, was able to kind of continue throughout the year and, did that for a couple of years. And then when one of the owners of ICN was transitioning out, I said, I want a part of it. I liked it so much, I bought the store, as I kind of joke with people. And it's been really great, working with other procurement professionals, again, to help give them the tools that they need to do better deals, to empower them, to make them feel confident, to be able to get themselves to say, hey, I'm doing some really good stuff here. I can help you get exactly all those things that vendor promised you. I can help you get those in the deal. I can help you get a good price for what we're buying. I can help you think through the things you're not thinking about. Just working with folks in the industry. It's why I wake up every morning.
I love that. And that's quite the endorsement for someone who starts out as a member and then is like, I want to just get into this thing head first.
Head first. I want to jump into the deep end of the pool. And honestly, I haven't looked back since. I mean, it's been just such an amazing experience. And, it's certainly in terms of my procurement career, working with ICN and specifically with our caucus organization and the workshops that ICN facilitates, it made a real difference to my ability to do a deal. Yeah, I got a good framework for terms and conditions, but again, there are things outside the legal aspects of a deal that you need to think through, you need to consider. And, ICN's been a big part of my development there.
Well, and it's an educational organization, right? That's all you do for the most part. Well, with consulting.
Yeah, I mean, we do have consulting. So when people do need an additional set of hands, we'll do some consulting work. But our primary drivers are really, the education and training, whether it's, our public facing workshops that we do, or, some clients will have us come privately and do a workshop just for their particular group. But then our membership organization is one of the things I'm really proud of. I believe that it takes a village. And I'm not saying that as a political statement, but I think the worst deal that you can possibly do is one in a vacuum where it's just you. And certainly, the more people you get in your organization to help chime in, and whether it's legal, risk, infosec, privacy, compliance, finance, whoever it is, like, you need all of those voices at the table to be able to do the best deal possible. You as a procurement professional, you need voices from other organizations. You need to tap into people that are doing deals for Fortune 50s, doing deals in the academic setting, doing deals for government, nonprofit, doing deals in the insurance space, doing deals in the woodworking space. I mean, I'm just trying to think, cross-functional group of people, that collective hive mind, and being able to tap into that experience on demand is just really, really, it's important, it's powerful, and I'm really, really proud of our caucus organization.
Sounds like a diverse group of people, an excellent platform. Probably your membership probably has several sourcing heroes, at least a few, right?
They do indeed. We award one each year, kind of our member of the year, and it is a sourcing hero. And I think one of the things that we as an industry don't do a good enough job of is championing ourselves and really laying out the good work that we're doing, shining a light on that to say, you know what, I add value here. And then in time when the economy is tough and there is that uncertainty, I really think it's more important than ever that we as procurement professionals go out, we market ourselves, we show the value that we provide. For far too long, we've just kind of quietly done that.
Yeah.
I think we need to bang a little bit of a drum these days and say, you know what, we're really important. We're a big part of the process. All of these things that this organization needs to do what this organization does, we're the linchpin. We're the group that makes it happen, and we need to champion that.
Yep, I agree. And that's why we have this podcast, to be honest. We want to give sourcing heroes, people in supply chain and procurement, a chance to talk about their wins and even their losses, because there's a lot to learn, like you said, from people with different backgrounds. And so, as tradition has been with this show, I'd like to ask you what a sourcing hero means to you.
Yeah, when you throw around the term sourcing hero, the term that resonates with me is this notion of a trusted advisor, right? I said kind of at the intro that procurement kind of has the dirty reputation of they slow down deals, they kill deals, they're that last road bump that has to be overcome to be able to make things really happen. That's not where you want to be, right? In my mind, the pinnacle of the profession is really being that trusted advisor. It's that person that business folks, stakeholders reach out to as soon as they're even thinking about a deal to give guidance. For far too long, early days of my career, I was I'm a lawyer by trade, right? So I'm T's and C's, and this is the process, and this is procedure, and you've got to fit into this, or you can't do the deal. I quickly realized that, it's that old saying, if you catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar, right? Like you've got to show value to really be able to get value back. And so I changed my mindset away from, let me force you into my process to let me bring you into it and show you what I'm doing. Let me empower you, Mr. Business Person. Here's what we're looking at in this deal. What's the most important aspect of it to you? What are some things that you'd like to have? What are things that you should have? Help me with this negotiation blueprint. Help me figure out what our objectives are and how I can do the best deal possible, not for me, but for you. This is ultimately your deal. I'm your champion. Let me go out there and get it for you. I'm happy to drive the car because that's my job as a procurement professional, but I want you riding shotgun with me because this is a journey that we're both on together. That simple mindset shift really it transformed the relationships that I have with stakeholders. It moved me from being that person in procurement who does the contracts to that person in procurement that we've got to bring to the table because we're thinking about, doing this new deal. And Robert's going to have a lot of insights and ideas and offer up things that we're not even thinking about yet. Let's get him looped in early. One of the bigger complaints that I hear in the industry is, gee, I wish we'd have just been involved in the procurement sooner, right? That we always get involved late. Transforming that mindset from let me force you into the process to let me bring you into it. Let me empower you. Let me make you feel like you're driving this thing. It's your deal, right? Let me help you. It helps solve for that problem. People bring you in earlier when they feel like you're actually valuable.
Right. And it sounds like you became the deal maker.
I'm a little biased and I'm not perfect and I would never hold myself out to be, but I will tell you that, as I transitioned away from Humana into ICN, my relationships with, the customers and folks that I supported was much better than when I started there. It was me kind of changing from that, let me force you through the process to really let me walk it with you, right? Because we're in this together.
Hey, do you remember that profile survey I sent you?
Uh-huh.
Did you happen to look at the results of that?
I did. I'm not recalling it off the top of mind, but I will tell you, and when we spoke about this, you warned me, or advised me, I guess is a better way to say it, that it's pretty much spot on. And I will tell you that it's pretty much spot on because I looked at those results and I'm like, yep, that's me to a T. It really is.
So the last episode we just recorded was with Phil Eidson, and we were talking about his profile in particular. And the topic was the profile of a procurement leader. What I remember that jumped out to me on your profile was that you are the peacekeeper.
Yeah, yeah. And that's certainly true, right? I'll be honest with you, as that was presented to me, my reaction to it was a little bit twofold, right? On one hand, it was, yeah, absolutely, 100%. But on the other hand, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm the negotiator guy. I'm supposed to go out and close the deal. But
that doesn't always close the deal, right?
It doesn't always close the deal, right? I think actually that sums up kind of my own professional journey quite well. I had a mentor very early on in my career that was the, fist on the table. I remember asking the question, I said, well, what does a good deal look like? And the response was something along the lines of, well, if there's any change to the contract, it's not a good deal. I'm like, well, that doesn't really seem like negotiating. That seems like I'm beating people over the head with paper. Like, I don't know that's really what it's all about. I am a big believer that every negotiation ultimately kind of boils down to money and risk on a table and kind of moving those back and forth between the purchaser and the supplier. I really do believe that. But that said, that doesn't mean that it has to be adversarial. There is a nice balance in between where, you know what, I'm paying a fair cost and you're able to make a profit. You're taking on some risk because you should, but it's not completely one-sided. And really developing that, crafting that, manifesting that with people with different personalities, different interests, different backgrounds. Sometimes it's 2 people at the table, sometimes it's 20. Just managing and facilitating all of that, I guess keeping the peace as that happens, is very much me.
Right. So you kind of have the perfect profile, the perfect personality for what you're doing. So, that explains your success, right?
Yeah. I think everybody has different gifts, right? And I think one of the things to really, I don't care what profession that you're in, whether it's procurement or otherwise, is to really understand who you are and what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And we all have them. Play to your strengths and then, kind of supplement, hire out, bring in people to help you, support you in those areas where you're weaker. I will tell you from personal experience, again, the worst deal you can possibly do is a deal in a vacuum. You've got to have other people that are there to support you. That awareness of, well, what am I decently good at? What do I kind of struggle with? And then piecing together a team to help, support those areas can be a really, really powerful tool.
Yep. Your profile did mention a need for collaboration. So nail on the head.
I am what it says on the tin, as they say. Yeah.
And I think what's really cool about procurement in particular, as we're talking about play to your strengths and get help with your weaknesses, is that in the industry, you can have an extrovert, you can be an introvert, you can be great at analytics, you can be great at speaking. There's so many niches and so many specialties that you're bound to find success somewhere. And I know that procurement is not necessarily something that you'll get a master's degree for, or even, a regular degree at a university. They just don't exist. And so people tend to fall into procurement, but there's something for everyone. And I think having this show and having all kinds of people have shown us that sourcing heroes are just as diverse as any other industry, and all kinds of people, all kinds of backgrounds. And that's why I loved having you on the show, because of your legal background and the perspective that you bring to this conversation. And so with your unique perspective, I would love to hear, your piece of advice for the up and coming procurement professionals, the ones that need to seize the day, rise up as procurement is continuing to be in the spotlight right now. What would you tell them?
That's a good question. I think back to early days in my career and the things that made a difference to me and were impactful to me. And part of it is certainly, kind of recognizing who you are, right? You said it so eloquently there that you can be an introvert and do this job. You can be an extrovert. You can be the most analytical person, or you could be the most legal person, the most T's and C's sort of person. We all have different strengths, and being your authentic self, I think, is foundational. Because as you're negotiating, as you're working with stakeholders, I don't care what your line of business is, people can smell a phony, right? They're going to understand you're pretending to be something that you're not. So understanding your authentic self, I think, is really important. But then I also think looking at other people who are successful and learning from them. I learned more from sitting in on negotiations with my peers, early days of my career than I ever did in law school. I learned, how does someone use tone to kind of manufacture, manipulate a conversation? How do you respond when documents are thrown over to you at the last minute? Are you conversational or are you adversarial? What's your personality? How do you take the temperature of the room? How do you use inflection? I mean, just watching people who I consider to be successful in the role. And then I would just kind of pull from each one of them, and I'd take characteristics that I liked. I would notice things that, weren't authentically me, things that I thought, what, I don't like how that situation was handled. I don't think I could I'm not a, pound the fist on the table sort of person. So that's not going to work. It works for this person, but that's not a me thing. Really just, tapping into the community, whatever it is, whether it's in your own organization, whether it's in, kind of a broader procurement organization, and learning and constantly evolving. That's always got to happen, is really what I would say to really take that next step in your career.
I love that. That's great advice. I think anybody could take that, whether they're in negotiations or not, and the message of your self brand and being your authentic self within procurement and highlighting that and talking about it. That's been a topic of conversation on this show in previous episodes, for sure. So we're at the point now where I would love to give you the chance to talk about ICN. We actually did talk about it earlier in the show a bit. And so our listeners got to hear about ICN, but tell me a little bit more about what you're doing with ICN and if there's anything coming up that you want to share with our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the reasons that I did join ICN was exactly what I said. It was so impactful and powerful to me as a member when given the opportunity to go in and really pay it forward, transform it into an organization that's going to continue to serve procurement professionals through the next several decades. It was really a no-brainer for me. I'm really proud of the trainings that we have. And we have some foundational trainings. We have our IT procurement bootcamp, which I helped assemble with a number of folks several years ago. That is really, it is a fire hose of, if you don't know what you're doing, you're pretty new to the procurement space and you just want to learn the basics in a quick 2-day sort of workshop, we have that. We have more advanced trainings, around cloud contracting, negotiating better statements of work, total vendor management. And we have a whole host of trainings, really, really proud of those and love presenting those to organizations. But really the crown jewel of ICN and the thing I'm most proud of is our caucus membership organization. It's that online community, which is a mix of, collaborative interaction with other procurement professionals. It's also infused with training and regular webinars, document sharing and document libraries, and all sorts of good things. That community and really taking that, enhancing it, moving it to its next stage of evolution is something that's really exciting for me. So both of those, certainly the training, the membership organization, really important. And obviously, we're always available for consulting work as well. What gets me fired up are really the education and the community aspects of things.
So if somebody's interested in taking a peek at your trainings, where would they go?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're interested in the trainings, you can head on over to dobetterdeals.com and we'll get you in a position to do better deals. If you're interested in the membership community, you can head over to caucus.com. One of the things that we have implemented is a free membership so you can get access. It's limited access to the community, but you're able to go in, check it out, see what it's all about, see if it's a good fit for you. No obligation, no strings attached. Again, it's just our way of paying it forward to the procurement professionals that are so important to keeping businesses running, especially right now in the midst of a pandemic.
What you're doing is so important. The education, the training, the access to the documents, the tools, and time after time on this show, I hear from procurement leaders that what is needed most is education. So hats off to you for leading the way.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. It's very kind. And certainly I agree. It's the thing that made a difference to me. Yeah, I knew a lot of law. I didn't know a lot of procurement. And the trainings that I received from ICN, they made all the difference to me in my career.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show and for sharing your perspective. Really enjoyed our conversation, Robert.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me and I appreciate the opportunity.
Until next time, I'll see you later.